So, I got quite the haul over at the scrap heap recently. We can just have a look at what we've all got here. This is a little D-Link 10100 Ethernet switch, model number DSS-5+. Nothing real special. Don't really know if it works. Didn't get a power supply with it, but I do have a couple power supplies that I think will work. Well, not really. It actually needs 7.5 volts, but I think I've got something that'll be able to give it 7.5 volts. I don't really ever plan on using it. I just thought, what the hey, might as well grab it. Maybe I can flip it for a little bit of money. Here's something interesting. I wonder if anybody will actually know what this is without me actually saying what it is. Well, I think it's pretty obvious. This is an iOmega zip drive. I'll be very surprised if it works. It's a Zip 100. It's actually a SCSI unit, which you can see back there. So that's what all this is for. It's set for, what is it set for right now? It looks like address 6, and termination's on, which is appropriate. I don't know if I can use the zip drive, but I can certainly use the 5 1/4 to 3.5 inch drive bay adapter that it's in right now. I got a gigabyte of memory across these two modules. What do we got? 512, DDR2, I think it's 667. Yeah, PC2 5200, 5300. 555, I'm sorry. Ubiquitous cheap speakers of the A-Open brand. MA691. Made in China, of course. Where else would it be made? And it so helpfully says that it is a speaker on the bottom. 160 watts. Yeah, I'll be very surprised if something like this could put out 160 milliwatts. An IDE cable. And this, which unfortunately somebody thought they were gaining something by picking apart the wiring, so it's mostly useless now. I don't know what people think they're gaining by stripping wiring off of working power supplies. They're not gaining anything. In fact, they're losing everything. And it ruins it for everybody, but it's a Baby AT power supply, which is why I grabbed it. You can see the switch, because Baby AT uses hardware power switch, and there's the ground braid, which somebody attached to it there, which was pretty naive. You're not supposed to do that. And then you can see there on the back, it is DVE, looks like 145 watt total. Doesn't really say much else about it. Probably just cheap crap, but it's a Baby AT power supply for crying out loud. You can see you've got +5, -5, +12, and -12. Typical Baby AT. Actually, I'm sorry, 200 watts. So that model number is actually fairly useless for determining what it is. Anyway, none of that is the point of the video, so I will come back in just a moment and we will have a look at what the point is. Here we go. Now this is really cool. Okay, maybe not really. It's actually rather hot when you consider that it's got a Pentium 4 CPU. Come on, focus. Designed for Windows XP, Windows Vista, capable. Looks an awful lot like the DX5150. Actually, I take that back. It doesn't look a damn thing like the DX5150. Other than the silver faceplate. Anyway, this is actually an HP dc7600 small form factor machine. You can see a DVD drive. No floppy drive in this one. Front panel, power switch. I mean, that looks the same, and it's still silver, but they don't look a thing alike. And they aren't, because this, of course, is Pentium 4 based. The other one is AMD based. This was the best one out of 3 that were there. One of them had a floppy drive, but no power. There was another one like this that had no power. This one was complete. I mean, it didn't have any RAM installed in it, but it was complete, and it said that it boots Windows 7, and indeed it does. We'll have a look at that later. I'll have to get that sticker off. Well, it's not sticker, it's masking tape. Before we do that, it actually came from the same place the DX5150 came from. You can see there, and I did actually look. Those locations, or at least that one and, well, that one, that was the only one I really checked, it's still around. Or at least Google knows where it is, and that's what it thinks is still there, so There's one thing, I guess. Power supply, cooling fan, power supply. Serial port, audio. There's no microphone input for some odd reason. I guess that's on the front. If I remember right. Yeah, there's microphone on the front. So I guess that's why that's set up the way it is. PS2 ports, parallel, VGA, 6 USB ports, Ethernet, and 4 half-height PCI slots. Actually, I take that back. One of them is PCI Express. No. There's only 3 slots. I don't know what this is supposed to be. I guess it's extra for the PCI Express slot. Okay, let's go ahead and pop the cover. So there we have a look at the machine. You can see down in there, the motherboard is mounted on a removable tray, which is really nice. Just your typical motherboard. For whatever reason, DIMM slots 2 and 4 are the primary slots, which you can see there. They've got RAM in them. That's not RAM that this came with. That's actually more RAM that I found in another scrap machine. A newer machine, but I wasn't really in the mood to grab it because it was kind of stripped. Didn't have a... Well, it did have a hard drive in it. Had a 500... Actually, that was another thing I found that I forgot to mention. This ST500DM002, it works. At least I think it works. It's not completely dead, at least. 500 gigabyte, relatively brand new, and that was in a machine that was waiting to be scrapped. No idea how that happened, but it was there, so I grabbed it and put it in here, and it has a Windows... I'm assuming it's a Windows 10 installation or a Windows 8 installation. It was that monotone blue logo that I'm not really that much of a fan of, but it's there. So that was what that was. Didn't start in this because obviously it didn't come from one of these. So it had no idea what to do with this, so it couldn't handle that and just rebooted the machine after a couple seconds. None of the capacitors that have the indented tops are bloated. There is, however, one bloated capacitor there. At least I'm assuming that's a bloated cap. It certainly looks a little domed. There's another one here. And I think there was one more somewhere else. Ooh. A random solid capacitor. I think that's the only one on this entire board. So there's the chassis intrusion switch. It had this hard drive installed in it. It's just an 80 gigabyte Western Digital. Nothing real fancy. So you can see it's a serial ATA drive. This thing would have provisions for a floppy drive if you had the right front panel, so I may grab that other machine if it's still there next week and grab the floppy drive out of it. But it said it had no power, so I don't know if I'm in a hurry to really grab it. I don't really care that much. I've only got so much more room to put these things. This just comes off. It's not really inserted there that well. To reveal dust, more of the voltage regulator. Look at that. There's a nice carpet on the CPU heatsink. I do need to make a correction. There's a PCI Express X1 slot here, a regular PCI Express slot that's actually useful right here, and 2 PCI slots. I thought there was only 3 slots, but there are actually 4, so having these 4 slots actually does make sense. That just pops up right there. And I do have more slot blanks, so I might grab one of those and put it in. There we go, and that's the way that it's supposed to be. Anyway, you can see all the back ends of the ports here. This, I don't know what this is. Case lock, maybe? Yeah, I can't really tell what that's supposed to be, because it doesn't really go to anything. Other than that connector down there. There's nothing on this. I suppose maybe it is supposed to be for a case lock, but I don't see anything that would suggest to me that it's actually useful at that job. Evercon. Yeah, cheap capacitor. Anyway, I think that's pretty much it. I can't think of much else to say about this machine, so I think the only thing I'm going to do now is put it all back together, plug it up, and fire it up. Okay, so we are just about ready to go. All I need to do is plug the computer in, which we will do here. So I haven't hooked up a mouse because I'm not really going to do much with the Windows installation that's on here. I have turned it on, I have pirated it up, I know what's on it, I know where it came from too. But I may do some investigation as to what exactly it did do in a previous life, but I'm not going to do that on video, so... System will come on. It's rather quiet. Here we can see dc7600, and it's going to count up all 4 gigs of RAM. Oh boy, that is going to take a while. For the record, I am aware that you can skip this, but I'm not going to because I just want to prove that it's got 4 gigs in it, because I'm actually not really sure. It could only be 2 gigs. It kitted, you know, 2 1 gig modules for 2 gigs. They were labeled 2 gigs, and I think they are each 2 gigs, but you never know. So we're going to find out live, or recorded, on YouTube. Okay, so 4096, system options not set. Alright, so there is what we have. 3328, even though 4096 is what it reports. Here's our light on DVD drive. Okay, if you're running Unix, you need to configure your system. We're not running Unix. We're going to go ahead and press F1 to save those changes, and then we'll go into the BIOS anyways. And it'll complain about a keyboard error. Are you kidding me? No, I don't think so. Okay, English. Here we go. System information. dc7600, small form factor. Pentium 4, 3 GHz even, 800 MHz front side bus. There's our CPU stepping, so if you want to go look that up, you certainly can. 2K of cache. Sorry, 2 megs of cache. And 4 gigs of RAM. So there we can go for all of that. Hidden escape. BIOS version. What is this? I think this was 0103, so I'll have to check and see if there's an updated BIOS. Set the date and time. Obviously, it's incorrect. It is actually... So there's that. And it is January 12th, 2018. Flash system ROM. We won't do that. Replicated setup. We won't do any of that. Here's our configuration. Everything there should be fine. Translation should be automatic. Storage options should be separate. Everything there should be fine. Let's run a self-test on the drive. 35 minutes. Yeah, forget that. I'm not waiting for that crap. There's our boot order, which looks okay. Security, all of that should be fine. Smart cover. Cover lock is unlocked. What happens if we set it to lock? Not a whole lot. We can enable or disable that. Everything seems to be okay. Drive lock, security. Power options, thermal. Does it tell us? No, we don't have any. Yeah, it doesn't give us any of the Execute memory test, I already did that. These automatic power on options. Everything else should be okay, so we are going to go ahead and save changes and exit. I hope it doesn't want to test all that RAM again. There we go. And it is now going to boot into Windows 7. And I think that is about as far as I'm going to take the video. Like I said, I'm not going to investigate anything because I don't really need to. And I wouldn't do that on video anyway. So, that's about it. Thank you for watching. If you have any comments, feel free to leave them down below. And this is CP666 signing off. I hope to see you next time. Till then.